The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's the start of a new year, and Canada has a ban on asbestos. Well, not quite. While I applaud the government for moving to ban this deadly substance, I am perplexed and disappointed that they've decided to allow exemptions. The final regulations have been watered down considerably, and most worrisome and troubling is the chlor-alkali plants that will be allowed to continue to use asbestos for 10 more years despite alternatives available. How we get from a ban to exemptions can only be explained by heavy-duty lobbying by the asbestos industry and a government that didn't stand up for workers and their health. I say this because there is no evidence whatsoever to the claims being made by industry to allow exemptions. None. The only evidence to continue exemptions is ensuring good profit for a few at the expense of many. That is putting at risk the health of Canadians to make a buck. Companies will also be allowed to sift through mining waste with asbestos concentrations of up to 40% looking for magnesium. I need to add, there'll be no bigwig CEO going to be sifting through asbestos-laden mining waste. Workers trying to make a living will be the ones putting not only their lives on the line, but the health of their family, friends, and the community. Kathleen Ruff, who has campaigned for years for a ban on asbestos, is also disappointed that the government has weakened their proposed regulations and succumbed to lobbying by vested interests. The government promised 3 years ago that it would bring in a comprehensive ban on asbestos, the deadliest industrial killer. Yet the regulations that have just gone into effect have been weakened by allowing exemptions. Between the time the proposed regulations were made public in January 2018 and the time the final regulations were published in late October, the government had added new exemptions. In his promise to ban asbestos, the Prime Minister said, "We know that its impact on workers far outweighs any benefits that it might provide, but the final regulations contradict this statement." The government estimates that asbestos exposure was responsible for approximately 1,900 lung cancer cases in 2011 and 430 cases of mesothelioma. According to these statistics, throughout the duration of Canada's proposed 7 to 10-year time-limited exclusion, asbestos will be the cause of cancer for over 16,000 Canadians. Just yesterday, the Minister of Health talked about the government's commitment to helping Canadians take action to prevent cancer, and I agree. I would suggest a total, comprehensive ban on asbestos should be a priority for a Minister of Health committed to preventing cancer. Yet the Quebec and federal governments have both contributed millions of dollars in funding for Alliance Magnesium to extract magnesium from decades of asbestos mine tailings in Quebec. Now that the government has finally acknowledged the dangers of asbestos to human health, it makes no sense that their ban on asbestos allows so many exemptions. Will the government immediately move to disallow these dangerous exemptions, stand up once and for all to the asbestos lobby, and protect the health of workers and all Canadians? Thank you.
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, and the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm happy to respond to the comments made by the Honourable Member for Saskatoon West regarding asbestos. This is clearly an important issue, and her advocacy on this issue is important. The Government of Canada is committed, Madam Speaker, to protecting the environment and safeguarding the health of Canadians from toxic substances. That is clear. The government recognizes that asbestos can cause life-threatening diseases and is proud to have taken action by banning asbestos and products containing asbestos. These regulations prohibit the import, sale, and use of asbestos, as well as the manufacture, import, sale, and use of asbestos-containing products, with a limited number of exclusions. Those were highlighted by the member for Saskatoon West. These new regulations, along with existing provincial controls, will prohibit activities using asbestos mining residues that could pose health risks. During the development of the regulations that are now in place, the Department held consultations with a wide variety of stakeholders, including industry, non-governmental groups, labour organizations, health and safety institutes, and provincial ministries and agencies. You can be assured that all of the information and comments received in response to the proposed regulations were taken into consideration in the development of the final workup of the regulations. Through the consultations that I've just mentioned, it was determined, for example, that the Quebec government has controls in place to manage the risks associated with the use of asbestos mining residues. In addition, there are numerous regulations in place right across Canada to protect the health and safety of all workers, including those working with asbestos mining residues. While the new regulations do not generally apply to asbestos mining residues, they do prohibit certain activities, including the sale of asbestos mining residues for use in construction and landscaping, unless authorized by the province in which the construction or landscaping occurs. The regulation also prohibits the use of asbestos mining residues to manufacture a product that contains asbestos. Allowing the extraction of valuable metals, such as magnesium, from asbestos mining residues is an important economic opportunity. Furthermore, allowing the use of asbestos mining residues for the rehabilitation of former mine sites will lead to a reduction in asbestos mining residues over time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've heard all these rationales before. There is no such thing as a safe level of exposure to asbestos. Every single one of Quebec's health authorities has asked the federal government to use its authority and not to exempt mining wastes. The facts about asbestos are irrefutable. For more than a century, asbestos has been known to be a deadly cause of diseases. All types of asbestos cause cancer. There is no such thing as a safe level of exposure or a safe controlled use of asbestos. There are numerous pathways of asbestos exposure for those mining, transporting, handling, repairing, removing, and disposing, particularly in the chlor-alkali industry. All exemptions will impact the efficacy of the Canadian ban and signal to importers and users in the United States and around the world that industry comes before health and the environment in Canada. Why does this government ignore the evidence and continue to put Canadians at risk? Thank you.
The honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
So again, appreciating the member for Saskatoon West and her comments in this House, but the issue of the health of Canadians is a fundamental priority for this government, as it should be, as it should be for all parliamentarians. Again, the regulatory approach we are taking to asbestos mining residues is consistent with the government announcement that was made in December 2016. At that time, we indicated that we would prohibit asbestos and products containing asbestos, but would allow the use of asbestos mining residues for the extraction of valuable minerals. While the new regulations do not apply to asbestos mining residues, they do prohibit the sale of asbestos mining residues for use in construction and landscaping, unless authorized by the province in which that construction or landscaping occurs. The regulations also prohibit the use of asbestos mining residues to manufacture a product that contains asbestos. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.